Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Neurodiversity Gold Podcast with me, Jude Morrow. And I'm delighted to have another guest episode today. Um, and my guest today is the founder of Inclusive Change, also a community interest company based in Bristol, who are piloting their own neurodiversity work experience program. And we have a lot of these on the show. I know we had this last week, but again, because I love and pride myself and the rest of the team do as well on having a unique kind of lens to spot things that are unique. We couldn't wait to speak to our guest today, who is Lucy Smith. Lucy, hello.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me on your show.
No, no, thank you for coming here to this pokey little neurodiversity podcast. And first of all, I mean, we'll get into like inclusive change and the CIC and stuff
Mhm.
as we tick forward over the course of this episode. But I suppose the first question is, Lucy Smith, who's that?
Oh my goodness. So, Lucy Smith is a mum who lives in South Gloucestershire, which in the UK is near Bristol. I have two amazing autistic teenagers, and that's kind of how I found I say I found the world of neurodiversity. However, now upon reflection, and this gives me time to just think about myself sometimes, Jude, when people ask me questions like, who is that? Um, I actually grew up with neurodiversity as part and parcel of my family, and I never really realized it. So for me, it's all very, very normal. And didn't realize that we were different. I thought we were the normal family, but clearly we weren't. I don't like using that word, but I've used it twice now. Um, so yeah, I founded an organization called Inclusive Change at Work, a community interest company over here in Bristol. And I've had a lengthy career around lots of different things, including 16 years as a civil servant in law enforcement. So lots of different experiences in lots of different things.
Oh, that's a pretty in-depth introduction because you know what, I had it was about maybe 2 3 years ago where I think it was in between the two book tours. It was in between the first and the second book tour that I went on, and somebody had actually asked Jude Morrow, who's that? And I said, I don't know.
Yeah,
Where it was a big kind of transition for me, like going from kind of like my past, life being a social worker, then come writer and speaker and book signer and radio and TV appearer. And
yeah.
it was just like that kind of transitionary period, which was a little bit scary. But you kind of touched on your career in the civil service. I mean, before going on this kind of stuff, like the marketing and consultancy stuff that I do. I was a social worker for a long time. So how did you find working in the civil service? And I will bite my tongue trying not to say any civil service jokes or insults or anything while I'm at it.
I
The sworn
loved
enemy
it.
of social services, the civil service.
Ah, I loved my career. I had 16 years. Started off as a customs officer. Um, yes, I was um on that side of the coin. I was on that side of the business, and ended up being a change manager, leading transformational change in law enforcement. So within places like the National Crime Agency, and I absolutely loved my career in the civil service. But one of the things I'll say is that I felt I had to leave it because my family, who were quite clearly neurodivergent and needed a lot of help from me, needed more from me. And traveling all around the world and doing a really, really great job, a really exciting job, it didn't align, and it meant that I couldn't do those things. So it had to change. Yeah.
Of course. And I suppose that what I do find is, I mean, with the amount of people that NTA has worked with over the years, is that, people with kind of neurodiversity or neurodivergent kind of led or supporting services, it's never like oh, I'm just going to jump into this market and operate in it. There's always like a personal angle where people
Yeah.
just seem to fall into it, don't they?
Yeah.
People
Absolutely.
people
Yeah.
just gravitate toward it, and it's all kind of unified under one thing, I think, where like really I can describe even the NTA origin story in a couple of sentences, isn't, I had a crappy time at school. It wasn't really the teacher's fault, but the fact of the matter is that kids nowadays are experiencing the same crappy things that I experienced 20 years ago. So
And it should change.
instead of being like a soapboxy keyboard warrior, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go out and make a change, probably get some doors slammed in my face, but that kind of comes part and parcel with the territory. So, I mean, with you, like, how did you fall into kind of like bringing out inclusive change?
Almost exactly the same, I'd say, because I'd gotten to a point in 2019 when life got pretty bad. And as a family, we were dealing some really heavy stuff and difficult stuff, and I broke. And I took 8 weeks off work, and at that time, I was working at University of Bristol, so I had a really good job again. I had a really great job, but I had to take time off. And in that time, I thought, you know, I can either sit back and I can either be the parent who looks for help and is everybody needs to help me and the system is broken and it's all rubbish, or I'm going to do something about this. And so I did. And so I said to myself, do you know, I can sit back and wait for people to do stuff for me, or I can start making change happen myself. And what I saw and what I was seeing happen. So my kids now are 16 and 14, and they were both diagnosed as autistic at 11, so 2 years apart from each other. And you could see what was going on in education. I could see what's going on in education, and the same things are still happening today as probably happened to you, Jude, when you were at secondary school. But what I had started to see was that actually we need to start thinking about the future of work, and that's not only for my family but also for organizations, for other families, because the whole point of getting through school is to get you to be an adult that can be part of life and enjoy being part of your community and probably go to work in a meaningful way that means that you can develop skills and contribute to society. It's a bit of a big picture, yeah. And anybody that asks me a question always gets a long answer, so I'm really sorry.
That's
Um,
fine. We love long
but
answers here.
so I looked and I thought, and I done some work already with the university. We did a project with the Centre for Innovation and Entrepreneurship to look at how we could, yeah, no, fancy. We wanted to look at how we could raise employment outcomes for autistic young people. And they went off and did a 6-month project for us and came back with this idea of a hub or an organization that could provide training, that could provide work experience, that could bring in role models and experts and mentors. And we thought, great. And then we said, oh, it's a bit hard, this, isn't it? How are we going to make this happen? And like you, I just wanted to go out and make that change happen. I can't sit back and not let it happen. And I know I can make a difference. So that's what we did.
And I'm so glad that you did. Because what I wanted to dive into was the program of work that you offer.
Yeah.
What does that look like for the participants that come into it?
So we always at Inclusive Change at Work wanted to work with people from the age of 13 upwards. And this was really important for us because lots of employment programs start at the age of 16, and you usually get 16 to 25. And once you get to 25, you're out of that funding remit, and it's very difficult to take things any further. So we don't have an upper age limit. We want to work with people from the age of 13 because what we provide meaningful work experience. And by that, I mean, we engage with a young person or adult and find out what makes them tick, what motivates them, what are they interested in? And then we find a work experience opportunity that would meet their needs, that will excite them, that will tick their boxes, and isn't just, oh, I've got to do this because so and so tells me I've got to go and do it. So that's one of the first things we do. We find out what makes people tick. And up until now, we've only been piloting since May this year. Up until now, we've offered opportunities in marketing, digital marketing and social media, copywriting, customer service in our shop. We created a shop just to provide, well, not just to provide work experience. That was the idea to start off with, and it's gone quite different. but our shop is an inclusive work experience environment for people. Then on top of that, we provide support and mentoring to help young people and adults understand what does this neurodiversity mean for them? Because quite a lot of the time we get people coming through to us who haven't had their diagnosis for very long, don't know what it means for them, have been through an education system where they've been told to do stuff and they do it by rote. They mask and they fit in and they manage to get by hook or by crook. And they come to us and we go, but what is it that you really like? And they go, I'm not sure. Or after a few weeks, they might say, do you know what? I'd really like to be a games designer. Or I'd never really thought about this, but I think I'm really great at this. So those kinds of things are really impactful. And we also add with it, we have a speech and language therapist and an occupational therapist who help and advise us. And they come and do some training with us and support us to understand things like selective or situational mutism, understanding sensory challenges and sensory differences. And it allows us to be able to support those young people and adults to think about and understand what helps them to thrive at work.
You know what I loved, right? And you know what? And just to kind of prove it, right? If you listened to what would be last week's episode, but it was really recorded an hour ago, where I'd said the same thing, and it was to Jason Sansusi, who offers a very, very niche kind of program in drone pilotry for ND kids. It's
Yeah,
fantastic. And a, a lot of people come to the NTI door saying, we want to launch a neurodiversity in the workplaces thing
yeah,
where, let's face it, okay? I mean, I'm a businessman. You're a businesswoman. You want to work with B2B. Businesses have money and it's a much
yeah,
easier market to operate in than B2C. But people do it wrong. People do it wrong where they partner up with organizations. They say, oh, we offer this program, but who does it really serve? Does it serve the organization or does it serve the people coming through it? And
yeah.
more often than not, it's more kind of serving of the former than the latter. But one thing I love that what you've said, and it's going to be in like last week's episode as well, is that you're going before the 16 mark, where a lot of them
Mm,
start at 16 or 18,
yeah,
where like school in general, I think like the education system as a whole needs massive, massive reform. Where I
yeah,
think like because I'm still waiting to use Pythagoras theorem. I'm still
never.
waiting. I'm still waiting you know, to know when I'm going to use various other things that I learned at school. Instead of things like budgeting, things like paying taxes, the other various different things that school just doesn't really
I get you.
prepare people for, where school really prepares people to do their best in an exam, which is a very oppressive environment anyway, as opposed to actually functioning in the real world, for want of
Yep.
a better term. So, I mean, from your point of view, what could organizations as a whole do better?
For adults or for younger people?
I would say for younger people.
Okay, so for me, it's about consider so the future of work and the pipeline of future talent coming through to the workplace is going to be having greater expectations of organizations, not just in the next year or so, but in the next 5 to 7 years. Okay, you're going to see a whole range of young people coming through school, college, and even university, and we're neurodivergent. They may or may not know it, they may or may not be aware, but organizations really have to get a grasp of what does this neurodiversity thing mean to us as an organization, and how can we support those people who already work with us? How can we support the parents who work with us of neurodivergent kids? And how will we meet the expectations of the future talent force or talent in the workforce coming through in the next 5 to 7 years? And that has got to be about understanding difference, understanding that just because you're neurodivergent doesn't mean that you can't be successful at work. By recognizing things like, well, actually, we might need to change our recruitment processes. We might need to look at how we write our job adverts, because we're screening out a whole load of people who are dyslexic, who are ADHD, or who don't consider themselves to be great communicators. You know, that thing that comes in a job description?
Oh
Oh, you
yeah,
have
I
to be,
hate those. They
yeah,
make me so sad. And you know what?
yeah,
Even with people that are opting themselves out as well, like because of the way the oppressive kind of autism training system
yeah.
works, where people like me are told, "Oh, did you have social and communication
Oh, do I
deficits?"
really?
Yeah, where you would look at a job application and say, "Must have great interpersonal skills." Again, whatever the fuck they are, and I would think, "Oh, I can't do that then."
Yeah, exactly. So you take yourself out of that process and you won't even apply for that job. And also, quite a lot of young people who will have come through education next 5 to 7 years, they're going to expect organizations to care about neurodiversity. I really, honestly, truly believe this. This is why I started talking about this back in 2018. And I started banging on about neurodiversity back then, and people were like, "What? Why are you? Why?" And I honestly, truly believe this. But there needs to be changes in the way people think about neurodiversity. And if you look at autism in particular, I can literally get on my high horse about this. If you treated any other protected characteristic in the same way that you treat people who are autistic, you well, I I can't even begin to say how cross and angry it makes me to see the way that people go, oh, so you're autistic, okay, well that means you can't do this and you can't do that. Well, you I'm used to working with Ofcom regulations, but bollocks to that is what I say. And actually, let's treat everybody as an individual, and let's look at those strengths of an individual, and let's work out how we can create an environment and a place where individuals can thrive. But here's the thing though, Jude, not every not everyone is suited to working in organizations. They're not suited to working in corporates, in civil service, in the social services, teaching. They think they do, they think they can, and they think, yeah, that's what I'm going to go for, because that's what they told me at school is the career I'm going to take. And self-employment and freelancing is absolutely something that I would start to say is going to be there's going to be a massive influx of neurodivergent entrepreneurs, is what I would say. Exactly. You're
And that's
pointing at
what
yourself.
and
Yeah,
that's what we do. That's what I like
yeah,
because we like I would say out of the hundreds of ND kind of entrepreneurs and charities and stuff that we've had, I would say 99% of them had careers, degrees, worked in corporate, some
yeah,
even had the fucking corner office. Some of them are in real
yeah,
leadership positions and
yeah.
saying, look,
I
this
worked with
doesn't
them.
work for me.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
doesn't work for me. And I want to do my own thing. And then that's where we kind of give them the kind of tried, tested, proven, boiled down to an exact science, get out into the world thing,
yeah,
that we do. And it works for everybody, that wants to come into it. But one thing, like in the show notes, whenever we put it out, what people want to discuss. There was a sentence in it that's definitely my favorite of the whole series so far, and it says here that you want to raise awareness of ND with organizations by meeting them at their bus stop and bringing them on a journey. I was like, I love that sentence. That's a very nice sentence. So, what does that look like in reality?
Okay, so that comes from the fact that by profession, I am a change manager, and I help in other aspects of my world. I help organizations, I help individuals manage transformation and organizational change. And so I've done that for a number of years, hence the name Inclusive Change. However, when you're working with people and you're trying to help them make a change, and actually incorporating neurodiversity and recognizing it and building a whole program around it, whatever, in an organization is a change program. You have to meet people where they are and get them to come with you. And if I simply went into an organization and started banging the drum and telling people, you have to change this, you have to change that, and not recognizing where they are and where they're coming from, and how much they know, how much awareness they have, I will get nowhere. So you need to recognize where people are and talk their language. So sometimes I talk about myself as an interpreter or a translator because I can make that translation from neurodivergent to organizational needs, etc. Because that's where I've worked for many years, and I can use the language from both sides and help people and persuade them that actually this is a really important thing. But not only is it really important, it's really beneficial for more than one group of people. So it's about meeting someone where they are and bringing them along rather than telling them you've just got to turn up at this bus stop and you better get with it and join the program and that's that, because they won't. They'll just fight.
Yeah, they will, and that's I think that's where people go wrong. Like the people that are putting out, because what happened during COVID, and I've said this a couple of times, and I stand by it, no matter how criticized I am for it. What happened in March 2020? Lockdown came, people were on furlough, and people thought, how can I make money? And they thought,
Yeah,
oh, I'm going to get a laptop, an internet connection, a Kajabi account, and I'm going to offer training to everybody. Where they stood on their soapbox and says, I offer training, I have lived
yeah.
experience, this is what I do now. And I will come in, I will right all your wrongs, I will put a roof over your organization, call it a day center, and ND people will be happy and will dance around the place,
Nope.
and your PR will be magnificent. And it doesn't work. It's never
Nope.
worked because when NTI started, a few years even before that, that's kind of the path I took. And it just worked so embarrassingly badly that it just didn't work. And what you have to do is you have to meet organizations in particular where they are rather
Yeah.
than going in and kind of putting in where you are into the
You find
organization. I
out,
think.
yeah, we've got to find out what do they need, what are their objectives, and what are their motivations for doing this.
Yeah.
And if you can work that out, then actually you can take them on a route that they want. I I use lots of different change methodology. I use lots of different frameworks and whatever, depending upon the needs of that person who's running that organization and who has contracted and said, actually, we want to do this, but also depending on what that organization looks like. And you can't just force people and walk in there and go, I'm going to train you and it's you're all going to be great and it's all going to change everything, because it doesn't work that way. And actually, managing neurodivergent teams is really hard because you've got things like I have this. So, as part of my organization, we set up a shop. It's called Your Village Shop. It's based in a retirement village. It's fantastic. I absolutely love everybody that works for me. I have about 22 staff and blah, blah, blah. But I employ about 65% of neurodivergent staff within that team. So you've got people with dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, autism. That's just to name a few of the things going on. Anxiety, all thrown in there. The people who are ADHD and the people who are autistic have different ways of thinking. And actually, we have to really delicately manage sometimes the expectations and the communication style of the person with ADHD who's like, gotta get this done now. And you haven't done it and I need it done. And I've forgotten all about that. And I'm going to go off and do something else now. To the autistic or employee who's like, focus, I just need time to process this. I need to do it in my own way. Please don't throw any more information my way because that's just going to throw me off. Really hard to do those kind of things. And that's the reality of what we're talking about if we're going to create neuro-inclusive cultures within the workplaces.
Of course, and that's the only way it's going to work. Like I mean, you're on the right path. I mean, you're like definitely miles and miles ahead of pretty much 99% of people in the sphere and in the space, which is absolutely wonderful. So we're near the end of 2022. Have you anything exciting in the pipeline for 2023?
Oh my goodness. Well, I do want to launch my online training platform as everybody else does. I'm only a few years behind. I didn't do it when COVID started. I opened a shop instead. And that was really quite insane. So there's that one. And I've got a few products that I'm going to be rolling out and launching, which are training products, which are around some very specific things like um, facilitation skills for neurodivergent groups and workshops. Because I don't know if anybody's tried to facilitate a group of people with ADHD in terms of sometimes some of the differences that you have to take into account of. So yeah, those are some of the things that we've kind of got in the pipeline.
Absolutely, that sounds absolutely brilliant. I mean, training platforms and stuff like that. There'll be a kind of an array of those in
Yeah.
2023, and we'll definitely look out for you. And I suppose my last question is, how can people get in touch with you? What are your .coms, links, emails if you want to share it,
Oh my
whatever?
goodness. If
Ooh.
you look for inclusive change out on Twitter, although I might not be on there. I probably will stay on there. LinkedIn, you can find me Lucy Smith on LinkedIn. I do quite a lot on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time. We have a website which we're just updating our website for our work experience program, which is called iwork2.org. And you can find us on Facebook, Inclusive Change at Work Community Interest Company. There's a whole range. This is one bit that we need to focus in on and actually fix this bit. So yeah. And we're
Absolutely. And
terrible at Instagram. Oh, I don't even bother going near it.
well, you know what? Especially what I mean, and this goes for everybody, is that if you're launching a product or a service, especially one that's visual, like a training
Yeah,
platform, I'm
it's
going
got
to
to be
break the
there.
sad news. I'm going to break the
I
sad news,
know.
and you know what it is?
I've got to be
You're
on
gonna
there.
have to you're gonna
I
have to
know.
be on there.
I'm
And do you
gonna
know
have to
where
do
else you have to be?
TikToks.
That's where else you have to be.
I know.
Um,
One of our trainees, he does videos and photography for us, and he's young, and he's like, "Oh, you're not gonna make me dance on TikTok, are you? You're not gonna make me do all that." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." But he does not entertain that kind of stuff. He's like, "No, he's only 19, bless him."
well, you know what? Having a rounded social media strategy, that'll be the best thing that happens, especially
Mm.
for the launch of it, because going into like a competitive kind of zone, especially Q1 of
Oh, very, very
2020
much so.
2023. But I have to say, this has been an absolute pleasure. Like everybody that we have on at the
Thank
minute,
you.
I could talk to you all day. And I mean, we'll absolutely continue conversations offline for sure. And it's been an absolute pleasure, Lizzie, having you on. Thank you so much for coming.
You too, Jude. Thank you for inviting me. I'm privileged to be talking to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody who's listened. And please join us again next week for another edition of the Neurodiversity Gold Podcast.